Last night, Thomas Massie lost his primary. And honestly, this feels bigger than just one politician losing a race. Reports say between $30 and $32 million were spent trying to take him down, making this one of the most expensive primaries in American history. And whether you like Massie or not, that should concern people. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Then came this explosive CNN segment where Tara Setmayer absolutely went scorched earth on Republicans and Jennings. You could feel the frustration boiling over live on air. Because this wasn't just about Massie anymore, it was about what happens when political parties punish anyone who refuses to completely fall in line. Let's watch this clip.
Well, it was the most expensive House primary in U.S. history, and the president made it a priority to get rid of Thomas Massie, and he succeeded because Massie had, frankly, become an opponent of the president inside of the party, and you just can't do that. You know, Massie used to, reliably vote with the Republicans. That number had been falling over time. This is one of the most conservative districts in the country. It's certainly a conservative area of Kentucky. They gave Donald Trump a massive victory in 2024. And they expect the Republican congressman who represents them to be part of the team. The two big issues in the race that were in most of the advertising had to do with tax cuts and immigration. And Massie was against Trump on both of his big border security and tax cut bills. And so they said, look, we can get a Republican congressman that'll be part of the team and support the president. That campaign worked. I just want to also add one other thing. Thomas Massie tonight in his concession speech said something despicable, anti-Semitic, nasty, gutter politics, right at the end. What a way to go out. He said, I would have called Ed Galrine, but I had to find him in Tel Aviv. There was an undercurrent of anti-Semitism in this race on the Massie side. There's been an undercurrent of it in his career, unfortunately, and it really came out in an ugly way tonight. And I think it needs to be stated, acknowledged, and condemned. Because it was pretty despicable.
All right, so that's the perspective from the district in which you also vote and live, yeah, and have been watching all this. Tara, I am curious from you, can Republicans not go against the president anymore? I mean, is that where we're at?
Clearly, the Republican Party has become a party of pedophile protectors. America is watching, okay? I don't agree with Thomas Massie on a lot of things, but, he did the right thing stepping up on the Epstein issue and took the side of the survivors. And his cardinal sin against Donald Trump was the fact that he pushed to have the Epstein files transparently opened up. And that was what upset Donald Trump. Trump wasn't after him because of any of the anti-Semitic things he said. I mean, that would have been nice, but he didn't care about that. He doesn't care about any of that. He was upset with Thomas Massie because Thomas Massie decided to put his whole career on the line for the Epstein survivors. And this is what the result has been. Now, I think that there are a lot of members of Congress who are looking at what's happening with this president, what a disastrous presidency this has been thus far. They're looking at his tanking poll numbers. They're looking at his priorities being all over the place, everywhere but where they should be in a midterm election. But they're too scared to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. Because they're looking at what happened to Massie. They're looking at what happened to Cassidy. But you know what? Some things are bigger than your elected office. Where the hell is the integrity of these people in the Republican Party to stand up and do what's right, not only for the country, but for their own constituents? So, Massie is another casualty of the retribution tour. But I think people need to understand that the reason why Donald Trump went after him was because he was not subservient to him on the Epstein files. And that is a problem because America will remember who protected predators.
Can we just do a little bit of fact checking on the Epstein issue? Did every member of the House Republican Conference, except for one, vote to release the Epstein files, yes or no?
Because there was a discharge petition where they had to.
The answer is yes. Did Donald Trump sign it into law, yes or no?
Because he knew that he was going to lose the discharge petition.
So just for the
be
record,
honest about that,
the Republicans voted to release it. Donald Trump signed
because
it.
There was a discharge petition. They were forced to put it on the floor, Scott. They weren't, come on. If they were open to doing it, then they would not have had to go through a discharge petition.
I know you're trying to rearrange.
No, I'm not telling you the facts.
But the
Mike
facts are
Johnson
the
said it was
Republicans passed
unfortunate when it
and
happened.
Trump signed it.
Scott, the White House brought in Lauren Boebert to the Situation Room and put all sorts of pressure on her to not vote for the discharge petition. And now Trump is going against Lauren Boebert. I mean, this Epstein thing is something that he has seen as a litmus test. And so, yeah, I mean, you can argue whatever you want.
My point is, every Republican voted for. Are you saying every Republican will now be primary?
Why did they need a discharge petition to do it?
You know that they voted for it because there were a few Republicans, including Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massie, who had the cojones, the courage to go against Trump. And
they had the courage in the last 2 years. He never cared about this until Trump took office. So
no, but listen,
let's be very clear about the timing.
The people who voted for Donald Trump cared about this.
That's right.
Part of the MAGA agenda, part of the what happened during the election is that people cared about the Epstein files.
You raised a good question about the people who voted for Trump. As a voter in this district, let me stand up for my people. These people voted for Donald Trump. They also voted for Massie on the expectation that he would help Donald Trump enact his agenda. He stopped doing that, and it's pretty simple. They decided to get a congressman who will help him enact that agenda. It's easy to overanalyze this. The bottom line is they love Trump. They love his agenda. Tax cuts, border security, you name it. Massie got off that team, and they wanted to put someone on the team who would help the president. It's pretty simple.
So, I do want to ask you something. Yeah. With these two people, Cassidy and now Massie, could Donald Trump be facing a problem when they come back, because they're not going to be out of their office right away? What do you see happening once they're back in Congress? Now they know they're not back. They're losing their seat. Do you see them deciding, okay, you know what? I mean, Cassidy just voted to limit Trump's power.
Yeah, Cassidy just came and voted for the War Powers resolution, right? So now he's free to do that. And from somebody who actually was part of the retribution for one of the first in 2019, right, in 2021, I can tell you right now that Trump does own the party. I used to make fun of it, saying, you know, this is a Mississippi leghound party. Everybody's trying their best, right, to cozy up to Trump as quickly as possible. And I was pretty sure, right, that wasn't going to keep happening, but it does. I was looking at Lindsey Graham, and I don't know if there's anybody who could be more sort of subservient to what's happening right now. But the thing is, regardless if that's what they're doing, right, everybody trying to get favor Trump, that's exactly what it is. Also with Ed Gallrein, we were talking about Massie, 14 years. I served with Massie, and Massie had some bizarre behaviors. Okay, so let's just be honest. And he had some belief systems like the Fedsurrection, right? Some of the things like that are absolutely insane. But Ed Gallrein really didn't run much of a campaign. It was more of what the Republicans would call a Biden campaign, where he's stuck in the basement, right? This was just $32 million of pure, absolute bully ball, right? That Trump and AIPAC and those guys actually did to go after this guy. But I think this is actually a bad thing for the Republican Party, because right now with the polling and what you're seeing with Trump right now, I think we're beyond political analysis. I think we're now into a diagnosis of tertiary failure with the Republican Party based on polling and what's happening right now.
Lydia, the party at the primaries, of course, are not the general. Are you worried that this could backfire? Because if you look at Trump's polling numbers, they don't look good. And each of these people were backed by Trump, although the party has consistently put in those people who he has put up against the incumbents.
Yeah, look, I mean, the fact that somebody like Massie lost so overwhelmingly would suggest that Republicans are still very aligned with Trump's agenda. The reason that Cornyn is in this position, the reason Massie was in this position, is they weren't really aligned with the MAGA agenda. And so to your point earlier, too, of, you know, is Trump going to face headwinds with his agenda now that people don't want to vote against him? The reason that Massie and Cornyn are in a tough spot in the first place is because they weren't voting with Trump's agenda, and that's what Republican voters want to be seeing.
Cornyn voted with Trump 99% of the time.
Good luck with that. I mean, good luck with
it's
that.
Not surprising that somebody who voted to impeach.
I mean,
like,
it's
not surprising
because he was against Trump 1% of the time. Right. He is the guy that has got to face the music when it comes to Trump. So you can't say that it's not because they were against Trump's agenda. That just doesn't work. The math doesn't math.
I will say, as a matter of like Senate legislative affairs, if you're sitting in the White House the Senate Republicans are going to be less governable now than they were previously. We saw Cassidy's vote on the War Powers. You know, we'll see what happens to Cornyn here. You already had Tillis laying out there and others. And so, you know, it's a majority, but if you have a few people who are willing to go the other way on certain issues, it's harder to get them aligned. The House is still a very narrow majority, probably still a little more alignable. But right now, the Senate will be a difficult task for the legislative affairs staff.
I do think, though, I mean, it's interesting. Cornyn, if he'd voted for the SAVE Act, Paxton in Texas said, oh, I'm going to drop out. So I think we're seeing a surge in the base and people who are really motivated to enact Trump's agenda, where some of these older sort of centrist candidates, frankly, haven't followed through in that regard.
So let me just give my thoughts on this for a second. Because honestly, I'm still trying to process what happened here. And look, I want to make this absolutely clear from the start. I am not some huge Thomas Massie supporter. I disagree with him on a lot politically. I'm not suddenly pretending he's my favourite politician overnight. But at the same time, I can still recognise when something feels genuinely disturbing in American politics. Because what just happened should send chills down people's spines. Thomas Massie just lost the most expensive House primary in American history. Tens of millions of dollars poured into removing one congressman. And according to a lot of critics, his biggest mistake wasn't immigration, taxes, or any of the talking points people are throwing around now. No, his real sin was refusing to stay quiet on the Epstein files and continuing to push for transparency when a lot of powerful people clearly wanted the conversation buried. And whether people like hearing that or not, that's why this story is exploding online right now. Meanwhile, Trump's endorsed candidate barely even had to do much campaigning. No massive media presence, no unforgettable debate performances, no overwhelming grassroots energy. Instead, what people saw was an avalanche of political spending, party backing, and Trump stepping in with his endorsement, and just like that, the race completely changed overnight. And honestly, that's the part people keep coming back to. Because when one endorsement combined with tens of millions of dollars can suddenly wipe out a sitting congressman, people naturally start asking themselves whether these races are truly about voters anymore, or whether political machines are deciding the outcome before ballots are even cast. And you could hear the frustration in this commentary, because even people who dislike Massie politically thought this race was going to be easy for him. They thought he would cruise through comfortably. Instead, he lost. And I think for a lot of observers, that result shattered this idea that independent voices inside political parties can survive if leadership decides they need to go. Then you add the whole Jennings argument into this, where criticism immediately gets brushed aside or reframed as something extreme, and the conversation just becomes even more chaotic. But at the centre of all this is a very simple reality. A congressman who kept demanding accountability on a hugely sensitive issue just got politically erased after one of the most expensive primaries America has ever seen. And regardless of party, that is going to make a lot of people deeply uncomfortable.